Hello, students! The French Revolution started with these wonderful ideas of liberty and equality. But, it soon took a very dark turn, becoming one of the most violent periods in all of history. So, in today's explainer, we are going to explore how and why this dramatic change happened. This brings us to a very important question, one that people have been asking for a long, long time. How did a revolution that was fighting for freedom end up creating a time of such extreme violence and fear? It's a real puzzle, isn't it? To understand this properly, we are going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at the final days of the monarchy. Then, we'll see how the Republic was born. After that, we will dive into the terror itself. Then, we'll explore the big debate. Was it liberty or tyranny? And finally, we will think about the revolution's legacy. Right, so let's start at the beginning of this phase. After 1791, France had a new constitution. The idea was to limit the king's power, making it a constitutional monarchy. But this new system did not work out. The whole situation was still very tense. Let's find out why. Well, the biggest problem was King Louis XVI himself. In public, he agreed to the new constitution, but secretly, he was making plans with other kings in Europe to crush the revolution and get his absolute power back. This was a huge betrayal, and it completely destroyed the people's trust in him. Now, on top of this problem inside France, there was a major threat from the outside. The kings of Prussia and Austria were really worried that the idea of revolution would spread to their own countries. So they started making plans to invade France. This made the French people feel trapped and very scared that their revolution was in serious danger. So, you have this mix of crisis, a king nobody trusts, and the fear of an invasion. This situation led to the rise of new political groups who were much more radical. They felt the revolution hadn't gone far enough. And the most important and influential of these groups was the Jacobins. So who were these Jacobins? Well, their main supporters were not the very rich people. They came from the less prosperous parts of society, small shopkeepers, artisans, printers, and daily wage workers. They felt that the first part of the revolution had only helped the wealthy. This group of supporters had a very interesting name. They were called the sans-culottes. This literally means those without knee breeches. You see, back then, the rich nobles wore these fancy short trousers that ended at the knee. So by wearing long striped trousers like the ones worn by workers, the sans-culottes were making a clear statement. It was their way of showing, we are not part of the aristocracy. All right, so the king could not be trusted, and these radical groups were gaining more and more support. This set the stage for a second, much more extreme revolution. Let's see how these groups took charge and completely changed the way France was governed. From here, events happened very, very quickly. In August 1792, the Jacobins attacked the king's palace and put the whole royal family in prison. A new government body, the Convention, was elected, and this was a huge change. Now all men over 21 could vote, not just the rich ones. The very first thing the Convention did was to get rid of the monarchy altogether. And just a few months later, the king was executed in public for treason. So, a very important date to remember is September 21st, 1792. On this day, France was declared a republic. This was a total break from centuries of having a king. A republic means that the government is elected by the people. There is no king or queen who inherits the power. But this new republic was born in a very difficult time. It was at war with other countries, and there were people inside France who still supported the king. So the leaders of the republic felt they had to take extreme steps to protect it. This is what led to the most violent part of the revolution. The man in charge at this time was Maximilien Robespierre. He was the leader of the Jacobins. In his mind, the new republic was fighting a desperate war of liberty against tyranny. He believed that to save the revolution from all its enemies, the government had to use terror as a form of justice. And so, the reign of terror began. For about a year, the government used a policy of very strict control and punishment. Everyone was suspicious of everyone else. If you were even seen as an enemy of the republic, maybe you were a former noble or a priest or even another revolutionary who disagreed with Robespierre, you could be arrested and put on trial. And if the special court found you guilty, you were executed using the guillotine. This was a machine used for beheading people, and it became the terrible symbol of the terror. Thousands and thousands of people were executed during this time. The level of violence was just immense. Robespierre's government also tried to force equality into every part of daily life.
They passed laws setting a maximum limit on wages and the price of goods. Things like meat and bread were rationed, so everyone got a share. All citizens had to eat the same equality bread. Even the way people addressed each other changed. Instead of monsieur or madame, which means sir or madam, everyone had to be called citoyen or citoyenne, which means citizen.
But all of this force and control raised a very serious question, one that people argued about a lot at the time. Was this real liberty? Or had the revolution just replaced the tyranny of a king with a new, even more brutal kind of tyranny? Let's look at two different opinions from that time. They really show us the two sides of the argument. On one hand, you have Robespierre, who said that terror was just a form of justice, fast and strict, and that it was needed to protect the Republic. But on the other hand, a revolutionary named Camille Desmoulins argued that liberty is about happiness and justice. He warned that for every one person you execute, you create 10 new enemies for the revolution. In the end, Robespierre's methods became too much, even for his own supporters. People got tired of the constant fear and the endless executions. So, in July 1794, the convention turned against him. He was arrested, and in a strange twist of fate, the man who sent so many to the guillotine was executed by the guillotine himself, and his death marked the end of the Reign of Terror. So, after all of that chaos and violence, what can we learn from this period? What is its legacy for us today? This period teaches us a very important two-part lesson. On one hand, the Reign of Terror shows just how powerful a revolution can be. It can completely change a country. But it is also a very scary reminder of the dangers that come when leaders start to believe that they can use any means, no matter how violent, to achieve their goals.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the main points. First, the constitutional monarchy failed because the king was not trustworthy and there was a threat of war. This led to the rise of the radical Jacobins and the sans-culottes, who then abolished the monarchy and created a republic. To protect this new republic, Robespierre started the Reign of Terror. And finally, this period of terror ended when Robespierre himself was executed.
And this brings us back to the big question at the heart of this entire story. Can violence ever be justified to protect freedom? This is a question that has been asked again and again throughout history, and it is something for all of us to think about very carefully.